Next question is, this question requires that you evaluate the underlined text to determine if it is correct. One of the benefits of Azure SQL Data Warehouse is that high availability is built into the platform. Instructions: review the underlined text. If it makes the statement correct, select no changes needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choices that makes the statement correct. Options are: Option A, no change is needed. Option B, automatic scaling. Option C, data compression. Option D, versioning. Correct answer is option A, no changes needed. Next question is, a support engineer plans to perform several Azure management tasks by using the Azure CLI. You install the CLI on a computer. You need to tell the support engineer which tools to use to run the CLI. Which two tools should you instruct the support engineer to use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Options are: Option A, Command Prompt. Option B, Azure Resource Explorer. Option C, Windows PowerShell. Option D, Windows Defender Firewall. Option E, Network and Sharing Center. Correct answer is option A and option C, Command Prompt and Windows PowerShell. Next question is, you plan to store 20 TB of data in Azure. The data will be accessed infrequently and visualized by using Microsoft Power BI. You need to recommend a storage solution for the data. Which two solutions should you recommend? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Options are: Option A, Azure Data Lake. Option B, Azure Cosmos DB. Option C, Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Option D, Azure SQL Database. Option E, Azure Database for PostgreSQL SQL. Correct answer is option A and option C, Azure Data Lake and Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Next question is, you need to identify the type of failure for which an Azure availability zone can be used to protect access to Azure services. What should you identify? Option A, a physical server failure. Option B, an Azure region failure. Option C, a storage failure. Option D, an Azure data center failure. Correct answer is option D, an Azure data center failure. Next question is, you have a virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2016. VM1 is in the East US Azure region. Which Azure service should you use from the Azure portal to view service failure notifications that can affect the availability of VM1? Option A, Azure Service Fabric. Option B, Azure Monitor. Option C, Azure Virtual Machines. Option D, Azure Advisor. Correct answer is option C, Azure Virtual Machines. Next question is, note this question is a part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: run the script from a computer that runs Linux and has the Azure CLI tool installed. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Correct answer is option B, no. Next question is, after you answer a question in the section, you will not be able to return. As a result, this question will not appear in the review screen. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: run the script from a computer that runs Chrome OS and uses Azure Cloud Shell. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Option A, yes. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: run the script from a computer that runs Mac OS and has PowerShell Core 6.0 installed. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Correct answer is option A, yes. Next question is, you have an Azure environment that contains 10 virtual networks and 100 virtual machines. You need to limit the amount of inbound traffic to all the Azure virtual networks. What should you create? Option A, one application security group ASG. Option B, 10 virtual network gateways. Option C, 10 Azure Express route circuits. Option D, one Azure firewall. Correct answer is option D, one Azure firewall. Next question is, you have an Azure environment that contains multiple Azure virtual machines. You plan to implement a solution that enables the client computers on your on-premises network to communicate the Azure virtual machines. You need to recommend which Azure resources must be created for the planned solution. Which two Azure resources should you include in the recommendation? Options are option A, a virtual network gateway. Option B, a load balancer. Option C, an application gateway. Option D, a virtual network. Option E, a gateway subnet. Correct answer is option A and option E, a virtual network gateway and a gateway subnet.